Hey everybody, I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run ons. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts. We're doing grade 5. All right. So we are doing grade 5 English lesson. And we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of sentences. We're doing fragments and run-ons. All right. So our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. Our subject is English language arts. We're doing grade 5. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of sentences, fragments, and run ons is it a complete sentence or fragment, or is it a complete sentence or run on? All right. So when it comes to sentences, fragments, and run-ons, so we're going to start with what a sentence is before we go on to what a fragment is, and then we go on to what a run-on sentence is. So these are different forms of sentences. We get a sentence, and then we have a fragment, right? And then we have a run-on. All right. So we see that sentences, right, is a group of words that forms a complete thought. So when it comes to a sentence, right, it has both a subject and it has a verb. That is a sentence, a completed sentence. And before we go on to our example, right, once again, we said a sentence or sentences. It is a group of words that forms a complete thought. Remember, it basically shows a complete thought. And it has both a subject, meaning it tells us who or what is doing the action, and it has a verb. It even tells us the action that they are doing. And if we look at this at this example, right, which says, "My friends walk along the path." So my friends walk along the path. And if we look at that sentence, right, that sentence has a subject, which is my friends or friends, as well as a verb, which is walk, or we can say walk along the path. Then we have a fragment, right? So we have a sentence that is a group of words that forms a complete thought. Then we have a fragment, and a fragment, right, or sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. So a sentence fragment does not express a complete thought. And when we say that it does not express a complete thought, right? The reason why it does not express a complete thought, it's because it's either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. Meaning within the sentence, there's either no subject or there's no verb. And the subject meaning there's either no person or animal or thing that is doing the action, or there's no action that is being done. We are doing sentences, fragments, and run-ons. So sentences, fragments, and run-ons. That is what we're doing. All right. And if we look at, and remember we said it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And if we look at this example over here of a fragment, right? It says knows the answer. Knows the answer. And if you look at that sentence, now the question is who knows the answer? So now the question is who knows the answer, right? And it doesn't tell us who knows the answer. So which means that this is a fragment because it is missing a subject. There is no who. They're not telling us who or what is doing the answer or knows the answer. And then if we look at the next sentence, right, it says the bright red car. The bright red car. And if we look at that sentence, it says the bright red car. But now the question is, what is the bright red car doing? It just says the bright red car. But now the question is, what is the bright red car doing? Like, what is the action? What is the verb over there? And there is no verb. So the bright red car. So now the question is, what is the bright red car doing? Because car, yes, is our subject. But now, what is the car doing? All it's saying is the bright red car, but it's not telling us what it is doing. So remember, if it is missing a subject, if there's no subject or there's no verb, then that is a sentence fragment. And that means it is not expressing a complete thought. It is not a complete thought, it's not a complete sentence, because a completed sentence has both subject and it has a verb. We won't say that a sentence is not a fragment is not a sentence. It is just not, it's just not a completed sentence. It's just not a completed sentence, because they do say a sentence fragment, right, which means that it is part of a sentence, right, but it's just that it's not expressing a complete sentence. Not a complete thought, a complete sentence, because it is either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. But a sentence, right? It is either, it has both subject and it has a verb. So we either need to say what the action also is, and we need to show who or what is doing the action in order to express a complete thought, a completed sentence. If it's missing a subject or it's missing a verb, then it is not a completed sentence. It's not a complete thought, it's not a complete sentence. And yes, we call that a fragment. All right. So now we have a run on sentence. A run on sentence. And a run on sentence, right? It is made up of two sentences that is joined without an end punctuation or just a comma. All right, no problem. And do not hesitate but to ask any question. So now we have a run on sentence, right? And a run on sentence, it is made up of two sentences that is joined without an in punctuation mark. It's like you are just writing and writing and writing, whereas that should have we either should have put a comma, or we should have put an in punctuation, like a period or something. All right. And if we look at an example of a run on sentence, we said a run on sentence, it is made up of two sentences that is joined without a punctuation or just a comma. And we're going to show you now how we can identify these two sentences and how we can separate those two sentences, right? So here it says, I knocked on the door, it opened. Remember, we said that with a sentence, right? A complete sentence has a subject and it has a verb, right? So let's say, for example, if you have a sentence and there's more than one action, more than one person or thing doing something, right? Then that means that you should either separate those sentences or just write it correctly. All right. So here it says, I knocked on the door. Yes, that is a subject already. Knocked is also a verb. So this sentence, I knocked on the door, that is supposed to be a sentence on its own. That should have been a sentence on its own. And then this where it says it opened should also have been a sentence on its own. So this is basically two sentences, right? And it is joined with no punctuation mark. It is just two sentences in one sentence. All right. If we look at another example, right? This first sentence is basically there's no punctuation mark, there's no end. Whereas this one, it says it started raining, then there's a comma, we ran inside. However, that is also two sentences, right? That is basically written together as one sentence. All right. So now, since we have that two sentences, right, that either has no in punctuation or it basically just joined with a comma, we are now going to show how we can fix that two sentences. So we can fix a run on sentence. So we can fix our run on sentences by separating it into two sentences, almost like I did there. I separated it by saying, I knocked on the door, it opened. That is almost like separating it. So we can separate it into two sentences. We add the end punctuation and then the first sentence capitalize it, meaning that we will say, I knocked on the door, period, because that is our first sentence, complete thought. Then the next one says, it opened. That is our second sentence. That is if we fix our run on sentence. Another way in which we can fix our run on sentence, the same like we did over there, because this one is just fixed, it's just joined by a comma. We also, for example, start with the capital letter, remove the comma, put our end mark or end point, and then we also write that as a full sentence. We ran inside. All right, so that is basically how we can fix a run-on sentence, because a run-on sentence, it is made up of two sentences that is joined without an in punctuation, or it is joined with just a comma, and we can fix it by, for example, separating that two sentences or separating it into two sentences, right? And then adding the necessary punctuations where needed. We can also fix a run on sentence, right? By rewriting it as a compound sentence. And a compound sentence, right? A compound sentence is two sentences that is joined by a comma and a conjunction such as and, but, or, so. All right. And if we look at an example of how we can write this specific sentence as a compound sentence, then it says, I knocked on the door, comma, and it opened. So I knocked on the door and it opened. So there we have our two sentences, but it is joined by a comma as well as a conjunction. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, where we're just going to go over it again, and then we're going to our test. Actually, we don't even have to go over it. Let's just go to our test, where we're going to say is it a complete sentence or a fragment. So we need to say if it's a complete sentence or a fragment. All right. Now we need to say which is a sentence fragment. Remember, a sentence fragment is either missing a subject or it is missing a verb. It is not a completed sentence. So, which is a sentence fragment? Is it option one, they sail under the bridge? Or is it option two, the pioneers in the wagon? So, option one, they sail under the bridge, or option two, the pioneers in the wagon, which is a sentence fragment. Option one or option two. And if we were to select the sentence fragment, right, we will choose option two, the pioneers in the wagon. All right, let's look at the next one. It says, which is a complete sentence? A complete sentence. Tucker will marry Anne on Sunday. Or option two, the inventor of the electric car. So option one, Tucker will marry Anne on Sunday. Or option two, the inventor of the electric car. A complete sentence. All right. And if we were to choose the correct option, yes, we will choose option one. Tucker will marry Anne on Sunday. Well done. Option one is correct. The next one says, which is a sentence fragment? A sentence fragment. Is it option one, Katie's favorite doll has red hair? Or option two, a city by the river? We need to select the sentence fragment. So option one, Katie's favorite doll has red hair. Or option two, a city by the river? A sentence fragment. All right, and if we were to select the sentence fragment, then we will choose option two. Well done. Option two is correct. Well done. The next one says, which is a sentence fragment? We need to say which is a sentence fragment. Irma speaks four languages, or option two, communicates well with everyone. So option one, Irma speaks four languages, or option two, communicates very well. A sentence fragment. All right, and if we were to choose the sentence fragment, then yes, we will say communicates well with everyone. It's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. That is a sentence fragment. So well done. All right, the next one says, which is a sentence fragment? Is it option one, drives a long distance? Or option two, we found India on a map? We found India on a map, option two, or option one, drives a long distance. All right. And if we were to select our sentence fragment, then Option one drives a long distance because it's not telling us who drives a long distance. Well done. All right, now we're going to the second one, second lesson, which says, is it a sentence or a run on? So we need to say if it's a sentence or a run on, right? And we already went over what a sentence is. We already went over what a run on sentence is. So let us go to our test. All right, so we need to say which is a run on sentence. Remember, a run on sentence, it is either it has no end punctuation or it has a comma. So two sentences together that is basically separated by comma or there is no end punctuation. So is it option one? The distance between those two cities is 76 minutes. Or option two, the voyage began in Spain, it ended in Mexico. We need to say which is a run on sentence, option one or option two. No problem. We need to say which one is a run on sentence. Remember, a run on sentence, it's like two sentences, right? That is either has no in punctuation or it has a comma that separates the two sentences. So which is a run on sentence? Option one, the voyage between those two cities is 76 minutes. Or option two, sorry, the distance between those two cities is 76 minutes. Or option two, the voyage began in Spain, it ended in Mexico. Let's try again. Look at look at the sentence, right? One of the sentences has two sentences that can stand on its own. Look at the sentence again. And if we were to select our run on sentence, then we will choose option two. Because look at option two. Option two says the voyage between Spain began in Spain, it ended in Mexico. Right? So we'll go with option two. All right. The next one says, which is a run on sentence? Remember, it is two sentences in one. Is it option one? The tired child lies down. It's nap time. Or option two, my family moved here 2 years ago. So option one, which is a run on sentence, or option two, a run on sentence. All right. Yes, and if we were to select the run on sentence, and we will say, the tired child lies down. It's nap time. That is our run on sentence. Well done. Which is a complete sentence. Remember, a complete sentence has both subject and it has a verb. It says, tomorrow we will shop, we will buy groceries, or option two, representatives from four countries talked about the treaty. So, complete sentence is it option one, tomorrow we will shop, we will buy groceries, or option two, representatives from four countries talked about the treaty. A completed sentence. Yes, and if we were to select a completed sentence, we will choose option two. Well done. Yes, well done. Now let's do the last one. It says, which is a run on sentence? This is the last one. A run on sentence. Is it option one, the joke was funny, the children liked it? Or option two, the woman trims Mary's long black hair? We need to select the run on sentence. Option one or option two. The run on sentence. It says the joke was funny. The children liked it, option one, or the woman trims Mary's long black hair. Which one is a run on sentence? And if we were to choose the run on sentence, we will choose option one. This run on sentence basically just has a comma. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on sentences, fragments, and run ons. We said a sentence shows that shows a complete thought as both subject and a verb. We said a fragment does not express a complete thought because it's either missing a subject or it's missing a verb. And then a run-on sentence is two sentences, but then it is joined without punctuation mark or just with a comma. All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade fives, for joining the class and for interacting. I really do appreciate it. So until next time, you must have a good evening further. Goodbye.